Welcome to the show. It's always a great pleasure to have you with us. This week we speak to Dr. Auma Obama. We focus on matters of development in Africa. We get your views on the issues. And as always, we have Africa's top 10. You're watching the Africa Leadership Dialogues. I'm Julie Gichuru. This week on the show, we host Dr. Auma Obama. Now, she's better known to many as the sister of the most powerful man in the world, US President Barack Obama, but she has incredible accomplishments as well. She's the founder and director of Sauti, and this is a foundation that aims to promote development by helping young people in Africa take advantage of educational, economic and cultural opportunities in order to shape their own destinies. Sauti is Kiswahili for strong voices.
Dr. Rita Auma Obama is a Germanist, sociologist, journalist, and author. Due to her fascination with German authors such as Heinrich Böll and Wolfgang Boschert, whose works she read in English, she started learning German at the Goethe Institute in Nairobi at the age of 17. In 1980, she went to Germany to study sociology and German with a DAAD, a German Academic Exchange Service scholarship at Heidelberg, and graduated with a Magister Artium degree in 1987. In 1988, she began, once again funded by the DAAD, to do a doctorate at the University of Beirut, eventually gaining her doctoral degree in 1996. She wrote her dissertation on the concept of work in Germany and Kenyan literature and culture. In autumn 2010, she published her autobiography, And the Life Happens, a memoir. In 2011, a former university classmate, film director Branwen Okpako, made a documentary about Auma Obama's professional and personal path, entitled The Education of Auma Obama.
Let's get straight to her views on the issues. Thank you so much, Auma, for finding time for the Africa Leadership Dialogues. Now, you've been doing work in the development world for quite a while now, and there's a whole discussion about, what kind of development aid works. Mm-hmm. What's your experience? What have you learned?
Well, first, thanks for having me here. Really happy to be here.
You're most welcome.
Thank you. I've worked in the humanitarian sector, as I call it, for a while. And I actually kind of got into it by chance, I'd say, because all of my life, my adult life, I've been working around how do people communicate better, how do people come to a space where they interact in such a way that they're not harming each other, but actually helping enhancing the development of each other and their communities. Mm-hmm. And I lived in Germany for a long time. As most people know, I studied there. And I did something called intercultural Germanistic, which is around the different cultures, how you interpret life and how you see other people. Mm-hmm. And one of the things I learned very early was that Europe sees Africa, the continent that I come from, and I'm very passionate about, in a certain way. And it doesn't matter as an African if you go and you live there and try to explain this continent. At the end of the day, it's yeah, that's right, but...
How do they
descriptions.
See us? How do they see
The main descriptions when I was there, because it's changed with time, mm-hmm. was that Africa was seen as a place of poverty, mm-hmm. a place of suffering and disease because of the AIDS epidemic, and a place where you have lovely animals, that you have a lot of sun and sand, the beaches, and you have war and mismanagement of government. Mm. So really a place that I couldn't relate to. Coming from Nairobi, from Kenya, growing up here. And trying to give this other image of what an African country would be like was always a struggle. So it led me to question what space, what platform is given in Europe for interaction with Africa. And that was the development sector, development aid, as it was known at the time, and it still is. And I explored that space and realized that the space also again saw us as victims, saw us as poor, and saw us as needy, and wanting of help and dependent. Mm. And again, an image that I couldn't relate to. So I started off by working with, actually collaborating with a German colleague around trying to change that image and trying to have a conversation around what is this continent and what are the countries? Because very often Africa is spoken about as if it's a country. And actually I've heard it even in the meantime from Africans who talk about this land, this country. And I'm like, Africa's a continent, guys. We need to sort that out because if we don't fix it in our heads, nobody else is going to understand that. So it was around working around what is this space and trying to let people realize that they're different people. It's very diverse. And of my kind, there are thousands. Of this intellectual level, there are thousands. So in that work, I realized working with adults was very, very difficult because you come with a lot of baggage. You come with your very many set ways. And it moved me to a space where, to cut the story short, I started working with children and young people. Because I feel that children and young people are still a tabula rasa. They're still an empty board. That the story is still to be told. There's no script. The fears they have are fears of just what is the future going to hold. So they're open to, is there a platform? Is there somebody who can show me opportunities for the future?
So the mindset change with children is possible and it can work well with adults. It's a challenge.
It's a challenge.
On the ground right now, you're doing some incredible work in Siaya and in a few other places. Tell us about the work you're doing and what your objectives are.
What I do is I run a foundation. And the foundation has 3 main pillars. Again, based on this experience I had around the mindset of the African initially and the young people. And about this mindset where we think that we are poor because we've been told we're poor. So the definition of poverty comes from abroad. It's brought in by ship. As they say, the English language came as well. So it's about redefining what we mean by poverty. Just because I live in a hut and I have no running water and I have no electricity, doesn't mean I'm poor. Because if I have 10 acres of land, and I can farm that land.
That is a resource.
It's a resource, it's an asset, and I'm wealthy. But I need to know that I'm wealthy. So that's the one thing. Change the mindset that we are not poor. And even if we are poor, poverty is no excuse.
Poverty is no excuse.
Meaning that we have unlimited opportunities if we see those opportunities. So that's what my foundation does. It does that with children and young people. It creates platforms to show them that they have opportunities unlimited. They just need to tap into them. The first opportunity they have is their potential as young people. And we work with them to develop, it's called personality development and character building, to realize who they are. Because many African children, and I say this because normally I don't like to generalize about Africa, but in this one case, maybe because we're all colonized, the majority of us, is this idea that we are less. We tend to look outwardly for acknowledgement and for celebration of ourselves and justification of who we are. We don't try to analyze ourselves and find out, who do I think I am? It's a difficult task. The Europeans and the Americans haven't mastered it either, actually, But they tend to they associate more with who am I and what is my position in this world and what can I do? So we work around the mindset, teaching young people already now, and we work with 4-year-olds to 25-year-olds, that they are responsible for their lives. It is them who makes the final decision.
So this basically is killing the pattern where you're looking, for instance, at government, tunaomba serikali, constantly asking, we're begging the government, we're asking the government. So this is killing that and telling people, you can make a change in your own life. Yes. You can start.
You can start. You not only can start, you must do it because it's your life. One of the things we say to the kids is, you are your future. And once you start taking control of your life and making decisions, and I say this because people might say, 4-year-olds, how? A 4-year-old who plays with cups and plates and things and knows that one will fall and break and turns around and is fearful, knows they've done something wrong. So they know they could have not played with those cups and not broken that cup. So already there, you are also determining what happens, what outcomes happen in your life. So we try to sensitize them to that. And once they know that and they start being proactive in what happens to their life, they then can move on to be so proactive that they're not saying, Sirikali naomba serikali, they're saying, Sirikali, I am telling you, because I voted for you.
Yes, and because I have the right. Yes.
And this is where we're trying to bring them to a space where the conversation with Sirikali is not putting out a begging bowl, but saying, hey, wait a minute. This, I voted for you, and this is what it says here and here. This is what your job description is.
Deliver.
Because I am your employer.
Deliver.
And if we can get our young people to that space, then the things will change. We don't have to get radical to try and move it so fast, because things don't move so fast. The human being moves very, very slowly. And if you're dealing with adults, again, they have baggage, they have their fears. With young people, they need to grow into this new mindset. They need to realize that they're not victims. They're not supposed to be dependent because they have options. And this is the platform we're trying to create with Sautiku, with the foundation. And actually, the name Sautiku, Powerful Voices, is for the very purpose that we want young people to use their voices. Because once you use your voice, you're aware of yourself, you are being active, people become aware of you. And when they become aware of you, they start listening. And once they listen to you, you have to be active. Because you're not going to just say and then not be active.
Right. And now, I know you've said we shouldn't generalize about Africa, but I will pose a question that cuts across, I think, many African countries, not all certainly. But if we as Africans do not create that mindset shift, especially in our younger people, because in many ways, we've given up on the older generation. But for the younger ones, as you've said, there's such hope and potential. If we don't create the shift, what kind of Africa will we have?
I daren't even go there. I don't want to think of that because I think we must create the shift. And we must create the shift for the reason that we are telling these children. And although we say with the older folk, we're kind of giving up on them, it's not so much by giving up on them, it's that they are fatigued, they're tired, because they're working with the structures that exist now. And the structures that exist now make it so difficult to not even be successful, to survive. So the adults are actually exhausted, but the trouble is they have such limited sight of what their options are. So part of what Sautiku does as well is that we work with the families and the parents, because I don't believe we're just working with the kids, changing their mindset, and suddenly they're little rebels in their homes, and the parents don't know what to do with them, and then we have real issues,
and
cultural issues,
revolution, China style,
exactly, which is not what the aim of what we're trying to do. It's a dialogue. So what we do is we work with the parents, especially, and as an example, we work in the rural area in Nyanza, in Siaya. So what we do is we work with the parents around, okay, you don't have school fees, you don't have food, you say you're poor, but you have 5 acres. So what we do is very simple. We tell them, now let us teach you how to grow to eat. So we teach them how to have kitchen gardens. And they grow a small patch to grow indigenous vegetables that they can put on the table and eat immediately.
Right.
Because they can get a full meal, beans, traditional vegetables,
from
and
their
maize.
own.
They can make a full nutritious meal just from going to their garden and digging. Because they have so much land, they tend to dig more than that is needed just to put food on the table. So from a grow to eat scenario, we have a grow to earn scenario, because they grow more than they need, and we tell them, look at the markets, they're empty. Take your food to market and sell it. And suddenly they're earning money. Because and this same money is used to pay for school fees.
Because in many of these areas, it's my understanding that the food is coming in from outside. So you're actually having to spend more.
We are importing. In this area where we work, they import food because they're not growing enough to feed themselves. And this is ridiculous because it's an agricultural small farmer, but nonetheless agricultural community. And it's because they're not using the resources. Everybody has cows, but do they make manure? Do they compost? So we teach them to make manure, to compost. And they see then suddenly, oh my God, I'm sitting on something that is very valuable. I have an asset. And the kids get that. They come along with us and see that and learn as well. So they suddenly start seeing the land differently and start valuing the land differently. Because up to now, anybody who stays in the rural area and is farming is a failure because they didn't make it. They didn't get into town and get a white-collar job. But how many have a white-collar job? The majority leave the countryside to go into the city to end up in the slums.
Let me ask this, because, there is this pattern of those who have gone to the city to white-collar jobs supporting those at home. And yet, just like the money that has traditionally come in from development funding, this money does not lead to transformation.
It's not sustainable.
How do we, in a way, shift those patterns or make sure that there's accountability and there's an awareness that if somebody's sending money home or if we're getting development aid, we have to really utilize it to better our lives for the long term, not the short term?
I think my problem with this getting money from externally, dependency on external funding, be it from the extended family, be it from the diaspora, which also supports a lot of our communities, or be it development aid. My problem with that is that it's something that is coming to you and you are passive in the process of this funding coming to you. And this passivity means that you are actually a victim in terms of a person who cannot
you're helpless.
You're helpless. You cannot determine your own destiny. And the thing is this: the minute you realize that you are responsible for your own future, you start to behave differently. You have just the issue of being dependent even on the family. When you have 6 children and you're continuing to have children, and the relative in Nairobi is trying to help support you, and you continue to have children. That does not make sense. Something in your head has to shift Something has to shift and say, this is what I create for myself. We have to start thinking long term. We have to start thinking, when I have 3 kids, I need to make sure that when they get to secondary school, I can afford to pay school fees for them. I cannot just continue and hope that something somewhere from the divine somewhere will make things happen. It'll work out in the end. It's not fair on the kids, because you tell them to work really hard, and they do that, and they will pass the exams, and then they get to finish Form 4 or even Class 8, and suddenly there's no money for school fees. And then you ask yourself, well, what was happening all along? And with this mind change, this shift, people need to start, the young people need to start seeing things in perspective and start realizing everything I do has consequences. Everything I do leads to somewhere. I need to focus. And at the other end, the adults have to realize they have to keep their promises. If we tell these kids, work hard, and we will see that you get into school, and they do work hard, you have to make sure you're providing to be able to afford to put them in school. We have to start creating spaces where they can then get jobs. First of all, they have to be employable. So they need to not just get education, they need to get quality education, which means we have to take care of our teachers, the very, very current subject at the moment, that they get the appropriate training to be able to teach our kids, our most precious asset that we give the teachers. So we have to make sure that that system works.
Stay with the Africa Leadership Dialogues.
Let's talk about the development funding and the patterns that we've seen in the past, and influencers like Dambisa Moyo have come down hard on these issues and spoken out and said it doesn't help. You know, let's call a spade a spade. How can, if you were advising a lot of these institutions, what would you say to them? How can we change the way they invest in our communities?
I think 2 things, in my opinion, have to happen. One is we have to educate the donor in terms of their engagement and what their agenda is. And on the other hand, we have to educate the recipients of these donations. On the side of the donor, we have to be very clear, both parties have to be very clear that there are certain interests at stake here. And one shouldn't mince words about that. One has to be very honest and clear about it. What's in it for you and what's in it for me? That's the first question that needs to be asked.
And there's never clarity on that.
There needs to be
especially
clarity
for the recipient.
Yes, and as far as I'm concerned, we're an NGO as well. Sauti is an NGO. We also receive funding. We receive donations. But one of the things I do, and I'm lucky and I'm able to do it as the founder of the organization, I have a very, very close relationship with our donors. I make sure that they get to know exactly what we're doing, what our vision is, in terms of what our expectations are as the recipients, and me as a Kenyan, as an African woman, not as a European coming in to help the poor, as being one of the people from those communities. I have a very clear idea of what the vision is around what we're trying to achieve. And one of the things that I think is very important for the donor to realize is the most we can do as NGOs is create platforms of opportunity. We can create the spaces because NGOs are non-profit. So like all I have achieved in terms of putting up a center and we're putting up a bigger center now in Lagos, Yaya, and which is being supported also partly by the German government, is creating, we cannot afford to do it because we are a non-profit. So we create the spaces, but the actual work being done has to be in collaboration with the recipient target groups. They must be wanting of whatever it is that we are putting there. They must be part of the conversation from day one. Because the old-fashioned way of saying, we know their problem, we've come and seen, they're living in huts, they don't have running water.
We'll come and land a toilet.
They're poor, because in my country, if you don't have electricity and running water, you're poor. So we completely project that and say they're poor. So we define, and then they're thinking, well, we're going to get this for free. We can't really say no. Okay, come ahead, do
we
what you
didn't
have
need
to
it.
do. And because we got it for free and we didn't ask, we can't question it. So we're just going to take it. And if they leave and leave us with it, it's not ours. So
we
it's
don't,
broken.
we
so
don't
we just don't
it.
fix it. We just call them back and say, you know that project was this and this is spoiled. Can you come and fix it? So then it becomes a white elephant. Yeah, they don't own it. So the idea for me is that about having that conversation, and it could be possible that the person coming there to do something can realize that actually we're redundant here. What we want to do is not in keeping with what they need, and we're not the experts on this. So let us have the humility to walk back and say, it's not for us. And go and look for where it works, because it's got to be a partnership. It's got to be on an equal playing field. And if it's a partnership, you're not coming to give them fish. You're not teaching them how to fish. You're asking them if they eat fish. Because we're not asked.
Wow, I love that. I love that.
We're not asked.
You're asking them.
You're asking them. And
first.
once you ask them if they eat fish, then you're having a conversation. Then it's a dialogue.
Incredible.
Then you're saying, you know what, maybe you could try this and this and that. Because actually my great-great-grandmother, she used to do X, Y, Z and it worked. And then they say, but you know what, that's great. We have scientists who can come and analyze that. Then it becomes an interaction, coordination. You're working together. It's a collaboration. And then it's completely different. And both of you get what you want. Because I always say, you might have another agenda and want to get 70% and I get 30. But I need to know why I'm getting only 30 and you're getting 70. And I need to agree. And then it's okay. You rip me off, but let me know that you're ripping me off. And then let me agree. But don't come and tell me you're helping me. Yes. Come and tell me you're working with me. Tell me you're partnering with me. And that's how I do it. In my foundation, that's how we work. All of the organizations that work with us are partners. All of the donors that work with us are partners, and it's sustainable. So what we say is, it's not just the one-off money you give us. We say, follow your money. Follow it and find out what your money is doing and become part of what we're trying to do. And they come back to us. And it could be that one time they give us funding, another time they give us the expertise. They may have a wonderful IT department and we're working on IT with the young people and we tell them, can you bring us some of your experts to come and lecture our kids on what it means to be in the new age, the electronic era, and what the dangers and the advantages are of that. And then their own employees come and participate and become part of what we're doing. So it becomes humans interacting and supporting each other for development's sake, but not any development, economic development. Because what we want to achieve is get those kids employable and employed. Because they've got to be part of the economic value chain. If we don't achieve that, we've achieved nothing.
So powerful. Thank you so much for sharing those words and in such a passionate way.
I'm very passionate about what I do. Maybe too much.
No, which is great. Let's go to the actual children that you deal with. And we say children, but it's 4 years up to 25. What's your experience in terms of what the market has for them? A lot of people leave school and jobs are very hard to find. The idea of diversifying the amount of courses that we have for these students, looking at sports seriously, looking at music seriously. What are you finding?
I think it's very stressful for young people at the moment. And really, to be honest, I always say I lived in a time when really we had it really, really easy when we were younger. Our stresses were, okay, which is the school you're going to go to? You want to go to the best schools, etc., etc. But really, in terms of your career possibilities, it was much, much brighter then. And kids nowadays, we have not kept up with the development of our young people. We have educated them, some less well than others, and that we have to work on and improve on. But the kids are coming out of there in droves. We have thousands of kids coming out who don't have work, and they're being forced to be entrepreneurs. And that is something that it's like a double-edged sword in a way, because they have no choice, and it's being pumped up so much. So everybody's saying, oh, great, wonderful. Especially Kenya is being used as an example of how we are so entrepreneurial, and because we've got the whole the internet at the moment and all that, so we're doing so many great things. We are. The young people are being forced to just take their destiny and their situation into their own hands and say, I'm not going to get a job out there because those spaces are not being created for me. I've got to create it for myself. So they are actually the ones who are creating jobs. They're creating employment through the fact that they're entrepreneurial. But it's very, very stressful for young people today. And it's not easy to be an entrepreneur. So even the whole idea around saying, oh, let's give them a loan and let them get a small business going, many of them fail. Many of them get into debt and never get out of debt. Our country is not so endangered by that. But if you look at places like India where people are committing suicide because they can't pay back their debts, we have to think about the fact that we need to offer a diverse range of options for employment for young people. And that is, the government is called on, industry is called on, all the different sectors are called on to participate, because this is our future. As much as I tell kids, you are your future, they are our future too. When I'm a 90-year-old, gray-haired old woman who can't climb up a pair of stairs and is wobbling around and trying to make herself understood, those young people will be in power, and they will be the ones deciding what happens with me. And I want them to put an infrastructure in place that gives me a dignified life when I'm 90, and they will not forget. So we need to, at this point in time, make sure that we're doing the right thing by young people, not just in terms of creating an infrastructure for them where they can get employment and become responsible adults who are financially independent. We also need to create spaces where they can be heard. And I say it from the 4-year-old to the 25-year-old, because kids have something to say. And we forget that. We can learn so much from young people. And we cannot ignore the fact that they are part of this society and this community. Our old folks knew how to do it. Traditionally, they had their place. Okay, we were a bit rigid, and we said kids shouldn't be heard, but we had a structure in place to initiate them into adulthood, and we created spaces for them that they slotted into. And that is going away. And Europe and America has a big problem with that, with young people who, and that's why I also work in Europe. I work in Germany with kids who are feeling very, very lost, very insecure emotionally and psychologically because they don't know their place in society anymore.
They're looking for a sense of belonging.
A sense of worth, because there's nothing more that people need than to feel that they're valued. And in Europe at the moment, it's based on having a job. And that's why you find many people struggle if they don't have a job. Our young people are in that dilemma now that they don't even start off with a job at all. There's nothing out there for them. And because our culture is still very traditional, it doesn't become the main thing in our life that defines us, But very, very slowly we're coming to a space where our jobs are going to define us. So imagine if you don't have a job. You're a nobody and you're a nothing, And you can't do that to our children.
So I had asked you, what happens if we don't get the mindset shift?
We will get it.
What happens if we do get it right?
We will get it because I think there are enough people who feel like I do, who work toward it. Example, Story Moja, which I'm the patron of, where we're trying to get young people, we're trying to grow and we're trying to support and promote the reading culture. Because without words, you cannot be articulate. And you cannot, if you don't know words, you can't learn. Yeah. You need to read. And our kids, the value of our education is such that we need to make sure that we're putting it at a level where the kids are able to absorb the knowledge that is out there. So there are a lot of organizations, a lot of initiatives working in that way. What we need to do is get government fully behind us, on board, supporting these initiatives, subsidizing these initiatives so that they can flourish and working together in such a way that we're working towards improving our communities, improving our nation.
I have to say,
and it's not a romantic notion because people think, oh, you're so naive, it's not going to happen. But really, if you think about it, at the end of the day, we have no choice.
Yeah, we'll talk about that in a moment when people doubt but just to say that reading is probably the greatest gift that you could give yourself as an individual. It opens up so much for you, and we must get access
to books.
Yes, to books. So how can people support Story Moja?
I mean, we've got a big campaign going on at the moment. It's called the Year to Start a Library campaign, where we're trying to put a library in every school in the country, in particular public schools, because you won't believe it, only 2% of the schools in Kenya have a library.
That's shocking.
2%. And these are schools where the kids are expected to read in a foreign language, because English is not our language. The majority of families in Kenya do not speak English as their first language. They don't speak English at home. And suddenly you throw your kid into a classroom, expect this kid to deliver and do well in a foreign language, and there are no books in the library. They have no way to expand their minds. They have no ways to be stimulated, to be creative, because it doesn't matter whether you're studying science or you're studying the arts. You need to be creative in order to be able to solve problems, in order to absorb information, in order to look for information. Even just going on the internet, you need a language to be able to search for anything. So that's why we want to start that's why we started this initiative, to put libraries in every school so we can put a book, at least, if not books, in the hands of every child in the country.
You take book donations from individuals?
Book donations are definitely very welcome. But more important than book donations, this campaign is about, because we've looked for creative ways to get the country involved, get the nation on board with us, where actually the campaign involves also writing a story. We have a young girl, a 10-year-old called Chella, who is spearheading the campaign, and she has put out an appeal to write a story for her, because the stories are being lost since we're not doing the oral literature anymore, and we don't have the books in the libraries, we don't have the libraries. So she has put out an appeal, let's write a story together as a nation. So what one can do is donate words or paragraphs or a sentence. It's 10 shillings a word, and it goes towards getting funding for the libraries. So we're writing a book with, I think at the moment we have 7 authors on board. We're going to have 12 authors on board to write a book for the nation. And this is something that is one-off. It's never been done before. And that's where we're calling on the nation to help us.
Fascinating. We'll put the details on the screen for you so you can perhaps find out more or participate. You mentioned an important word, naive. That when people dream big, those dreams, and especially children, and it's heartbreaking, the world batters those dreams out of them. You can't, you will never, you're not good enough. When we look at the story of your brother becoming the first Black president of the United States of America, the son of a Kenyan man. There we go, it says Kenyan American president. There's a power in that story. Yeah. So what message would you want to share with with people who almost think that way, who are doubters, who think big dreams are naive, who've given up? Because in a sense, that's what has happened.
Yeah. Well, I think it's just exactly what we say at Sauti. You are your future. You can make your future become your reality, you know, what you want to be. And it's about believing in yourself. It's about knowing yourself and saying, I'm not going to give up. I'm going to do this thing, you know. And I think that's exactly what my brother did. You know, he felt passionate about what he wanted to do. He wanted to do something, make change happen in his country. And he found the path that he thought would be the right one to take. And he took it and he went all the way. And that's the thing. Don't give up, go all the way. But you have to be active. You have to do something. You cannot sit and do nothing and expect others to do it for you. And that's exactly the message that we keep trying to give. If you wait for somebody else to organize your life, it's not going to happen. I mean, when I started Sauti as a small story, it took me a year and a half to realize that these young people, you know, they find it very, very difficult to take their lives into their own hands, because I went and met 10 kids under a tree and told them, I got them from the secondary school and told them, okay, what do you want to do in your life? What are the challenges and issues that you have? And how would you like to change your community so you have a better life? And they didn't respond. And for a year and a half, we sat opposite each other, just looking at each other, and never gave me an answer. And I was really frustrated. I said, what do you want to do? And in the end, at some point, when we got into a situation where they really could talk to me, it was like, they didn't have an answer, because they told me that was the most difficult question I'd ever asked them, because nobody had ever asked them what they want to do, what they can do to change their lives. So we sat there waiting, each, you know, opposite each other, waiting.
Did you literally wait for them to tell them?
Years, yeah.
To tell them?
And then I told them, I can't tell you. I didn't tell them. I said, if I organize your life, I will organize it until you're getting your pension and you're an old man or woman and you've had your kids and you're, you know, sitting, watching your whatever, you know, your twilight time, because I move so fast, but that's my life. You need to organize your life. And it took that long, and only that's where we brought in the sports, because we then started doing other activities with them, where we got them to use their voice. Because I always say, where's the noisiest place in a school? It's in the sports field.
Yes.
Because they make noise. They suddenly hear themselves and get a shock, oh, I have a voice. And then they work as a team. And then they can be loud. And using their voice, they start finding themselves. And that's how slowly but surely we got into a conversation with them. And they started talking about the things they want to do. And now the young people I work with, they tell me what to do. You know, I'm like, what's this monster I created? And they're like telling me, we want to do this, we want to do that. And we don't want to do this and we don't want to do that.
Right.
And they have to get there, but it takes time. It takes patience. And it takes understanding the environment that you're working
It's
in.
great to hear the transformation is happening. Auma, please look into the camera. We always end with a word directly to our audience. For all those people sitting down, listening, millions wondering, you know, what next? So how do I achieve my dream? With all the problems that we have, really, can I really take control of my own destiny? Please deliver a direct message.
I think what I'd say is that everybody has to take control of their own destiny. You have no option. If you keep looking out for a solution, you make yourself smaller than you are. You make yourself less than you are. And if you make yourself less than you are, whoever comes in to take over and help you, you will always be benevolent to them. You will always be in a position where you are grateful. And a position of gratefulness is a position of weakness. So I always say this, and people tell me this in connection with my brother, obviously, because he's the most powerful man in the world, as I'm told. You know, they kind of like, when is he going to come and make a difference for us? We want him to come and help us. And I'm like, you need to help yourself. Stop being dependent on others. Stop making yourself less than you are, especially on this continent. The Africans have done amazing things. We have come from, in a very short period, to a position where we can move in different worlds, in different language, different cultures, and we are okay. We're sane doing that. I mean, it is amazing. African people are amazing, and they need to start celebrating themselves and start working towards making things happen for themselves, by themselves. Stop being dependent. Stop keep asking people to teach you how to fish, to give you fish. You know, we can figure it out for ourselves, and that's really what, for me, is the most important thing.
Wow. Yeah. Thank you so much, Auma. What I've taken from this is believe in yourself. Have a passion. Have a focus. Know where you're going and what you want to achieve. Create a path, and then you must walk the path. Thank you so much for joining us on Africa Leadership Dialogues. What a pleasure.
Thank you.
Stay with the Africa Leadership Dialogues.
I'm Auma Obama, and you're watching the Africa Leadership Dialogues.
What an incredible perspective. Auma is so passionate about Africa and her belief that we can make the difference in our own lives. I hope that you have seen the light, so to speak. Time now for your views on the issues.
This week we asked you, how can the youth better position themselves to maximize on their creative skills? Alex Ofula says, raising the visibility of skills acquired outside the formal system and fostering complementarity between non-formal and formal learning, while at the same time promoting equal opportunities.
Hello, I'm Julie Kiruma, watching Africa Leadership Dialogues from Nairobi. How youth should maximize on their creative skills. First point is they should have the initiative to actually look at their creative skills. For example, if you're good at something, you should wake up from the seat and do it and strive to it. Have the urge to do it. Second point is you should train on your skills. Yes, you're born with the skill, but you're not 100% born with it. So you should actually do it well and train with it for you to become a better person in the market. And the third point is you should go for the exposure, which will bring for you opportunities, which will end up getting you a great job in your life.
To join our conversation, go to our G+ page, Africa Leadership Dialogues, on Facebook, Africa Leadership Dialogues, on Twitter, @AfricaLD, and on WhatsApp, send your video comments to +254 715 816 033.
We love to get your feedback. Please keep it coming in. And now we move to Africa's Top 10.
This week on Africa's Top 10, we feature countries collaborating well with businesses on research and development. The aim of the research was to establish the extent in which businesses collaborate with the youths in universities when it comes to research and development. This is according to the World Economic Forum. Starting us off at number 10 is Seychelles with an index of 3.4 and is ranked position 31 globally. Coming in at number 9 is Namibia with an index of 3.5 and is ranked 79 globally. Taking the number 8 spot is Ethiopia. Right at the Horn of Africa, it is ranked 78 globally with an index of 3.53. Slotted in at number 7 is Ghana. The West African nation recorded an index of 3.56 and is ranked 77 globally. Zambia takes the number 6 slot with an index of 3.58 and is ranked 75 globally. Positioned at number 5 is Senegal, having an index of 3.6 and is positioned 65 globally. Occupying the 4th slot is Rwanda. The land of 1,000 hills is ranked 64 globally with an index of 3.7. Anchored in at position 3 is Uganda. The landlocked East African nation has an index of 3.75 and is positioned 62 globally. Coming in at number 2 is Kenya with an index of 4.2 and is ranked 37 globally. Rounding off the top 10 this week is South Africa with an index of 4.5 and is ranked 31 globally. And that's Africa's Top 10 this week.
As always, words of wisdom for you as we close the show. And this week our African proverb goes, you must attend to your business with a vendor in the market and not to the noise of the market. An extremely powerful message in a dynamic world where so much is happening. Focus. Blessings to you and blessings to Africa.